in the 45 plus years that I've been working with organizations and project teams, two truths. Communication is always the problem, and communication is always the fix. Clarity. Clarity is the engine for momentum. So clarity it is not a condition. It's not a mindset. Clarity is really the activating force behind all forward motion. Leaders who are going to spew all of the corporate speak, or just because they're titled a leader does not mean they deserve respect. When people start pushing back, it isn't actually resistance. It's a request. It's not that people are resisting the change. They're resisting losing what they have. Clarity is present. Energy gets organized. Decisions are aligned, and momentum becomes inevitable.
Carla, thank you so much for being here today. And one of the things that you tell me that is really important is that clarity equals momentum.
Oh, yeah.
So I really want to dive into just a conversation about clarity. How do we get clarity, and how does it move us to momentum? So why don't you just kind of start with your definition of what clarity is?
Thank you first for having me, Nancy. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Clarity is the engine for momentum. So clarity it is not a condition. It's not a mindset. Clarity is really the activating force behind all forward motion. So whether you're an individual and you've got a task that you want to tackle, you're on a team, perhaps you are a part of a project, or you're leading the project, you're part of an organization, you want to start your own business, it doesn't matter. Clarity is the single most important element of the success you have a chance to achieve. Absolutely. And so what is clarity? Clarity is really, it's about organizing the what, the so what, and the now what of what's ahead. It's understanding it, it's not a rallying cry. It's not something we wait for. We have to consciously pursue it. And when we talk about for your podcast, Engineering Better Conversations, when we take a look at the issues that face project teams, face individuals, I've in the 45 plus years that I've been working with organizations and project teams and across the world and whatever, two truths. Communication is always the problem, and communication is always the fix.
Yes.
Are we clear?
I'm 100% in agreement with you. You're speaking my language.
Oh my gosh, how many times have we seen it, right? So what we could talk about perhaps that would serve well is that notion about how do we get clear? How do we gain that clarity when we're trying to communicate stuff to other people, whatever that might be? And so if we wanted to take a scenario and play with it, if we wanted to just talk about it in a more ethereal way, at the end of the day, it is the activating force behind everything that follows. If you don't start with clarity, you may as well not start.
I love that simplicity, that clarity, right? Just getting clear, taking that time and developing that clarity is the key. And as you say, it's the energy, it's the engine behind success. And I see this so often in the project world, is that people are not communicating in clear, simple language. I feel, and I'm curious to know if you've ever seen this, that sometimes leaders feel that they need to speak in complex terms to make them sound as leaders. And the ones that we really enjoy, I see a smile on your face, the ones that we really connect with, that really lead us, are the ones who can take complex ideas and make them simple so that they're clear and we can understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one of the things that comes from that is that clarity itself doesn't eliminate complexity. And so you just talked about those leaders who are going to spew all of the corporate speak and or the technical hoop-de-doo to just appear like they know. Just because they're titled a leader does not mean they deserve respect. Everyone is a leader because everyone influences those around them, influences the environment. So when we talk about those people, not just titled leaders, but people who think that their bluster is good enough to command the day,
Mhm.
that, yes, I have seen it. I have
Yeah.
seen it from the top floor to the plant floor and everywhere in between. Across organizations, it does not matter. I want to get back to this whole notion, though, that clarity itself doesn't eliminate the complexity. It actually organizes that complexity into power.
Yes.
Oh, it's just a bunch of little pieces coming together in an orderly fashion. Clarity around how to make that happen, including people coming together, like in a project. How many project plans have we looked at? And there's just this, you know, Gantt charts. Sometimes they're part of my nightmares now. It used to be a part of my daily work. What I would like to get back to is the fact that with a leader, if the leader is not clear enough on what it is that needs to happen and why, and instead is counting on bluster and just do it, or in manufacturing, we added to the Nike slogan of just do it, we added an F in there. And the fact is that that doesn't help clear up anything for anybody. That is not the way to start the engine of momentum. Just do it. Look at the Gantt chart. Make sure all of these things happen. Now, if I could, I come from an automotive background, and when when you think about getting all the best parts together, we're going to get the best engine, we're going to get the best transmission or battery pack or whatever. We're going to get the best windshield, the best entertainment system, and expect them to all just fit together without looking at the elements that turns into complexity about how those things can come together. You're not going to be able to get that thing to run. You're not going to be able to use it. So being able to be clear, especially in times when things are complex, it organizes that complexity into power. And where others might see obstacles, clarity reveals where the highest leverage points are.
I love the concept that to get out of this just do it because I said so philosophy, and like, let's give you clarity as to where we are going to go. I used to work with engineers who got this like joy, and they would use this term that bullshit baffles brains. And so they would use bullshit and like trying to make things super complex to make them sound more important, to make them sound like, oh, my idea is really, really great. And the reality is, coming back, being able to provide people with that clarity, especially on your project team. If you are a project leader, the clearer you can be, the easier it is for your team to execute. The
Oh
easier
my.
it is for people to get buy-in to what it is that you're going to do. And maybe if we can even jump into that concept. If you are trying to sell an idea, like a project idea, a change management idea in an organization, tell me, how does clarity connect to being able to land that message so that others buy into what it is so that you can get your project approved, get your change approved?
What I have seen work with so many of my clients and leveraged it myself, tested it, failed, tweaked, learned over time. But at the end of the day, you want to help somebody buy into it and sign on the bottom line for a project. They need to be able to see the end in their terms. They need to understand with the end in mind. It's not that we finished the project on time, everything passed testing, and we were on budget. That's not success, because somebody's not going to sign up to celebrate we did what we said we were going to do. There's a why we are doing this. That end result, a person is not going to buy into a project just to watch a team do what it said it was going to do. But a person signs on to a project because they understand the value that this project's conclusion will provide for that individual or the organization as a whole, whatever. Try to sell the idea to I have a metaphor, an analogy. Apollo 13, the movie, and also the historic event. There's a scene in Apollo 13. Now, the guys are up in space. The fuel cell is blown up. Now they need to get home, and the way they were supposed to be able to get home is all broken up, right? So there's a scene where they get very clear on the fact that they have to figure out on the ground how to help that embattled ship and those 3 lives make it safely back to Earth. So there's the scene where they come into this conference room. They've got all the different engineers who have worked on this piece of equipment, or the spacecraft, and they dump a box of parts and pieces that are available to those astronauts, thousands and thousands of miles in space, and they have to figure out how to use that pile of stuff to create a safe way for those guys to get home. Now, the mission is very clear. It isn't that we need to figure out how to compile something out of this box full of parts and pieces, including parts of spacesuits and pens and whatever else they have at their disposal. They can't run to the surplus store. So very, very clear what the end result, the why of this project. The why is we're going to save 3 lives, get these guys home. So when you think about being able to sit at a boardroom and table and you're listening to a proposal, there has got to be, like in straight marketing terms, there has got to be some top of mind pain that's going to be resolved, and you need to be able to sell it in such a way that that person who gets to say yes or no, give it the green light, can see, taste, feel, understand, and be excited about that project being done. So it starts with the end in mind. You need, as the presenter, as the promoter for this particular project, you need to understand what they need well enough to communicate the value to them of saying yes to this project in terms they understand. It has got to be in their language. Very clear picture. So Nancy, it starts with whoever is going to be promoting an idea. You could be promoting a change in the diet around the family, around the dinner table. You could be proposing change in budgeting. You could be proposing the next spacecraft. I don't know. I don't care. You need to be very clear, because all the stakeholders that are going to either have to be influential or are going to be impacted need to understand it well enough that they too can see, taste, feel, hear, understand the value, how it's going to address the top of mind pain. I may be going way off course here with your question.
No, it's great, right? Like, this is really intended to be a conversation and really dive in deeper to what it is that people need to hear. And one of the things that I heard you say, and this is one of the things that as we both have moved from the corporate world of running and the projects and leading change and move into this entrepreneurial world, one of the things that I think I am learning that I wish I had learned probably as part of my engineering was marketing.
Mm.
And marketing really teaches you how to get clear. And I describe it, often engineers and people in projects are at the top of the mountain going, hey, here's the solution. And sometimes we have to come off the mountain, back down to where the people are who you are trying to share this idea with, get them to buy in, and start there, and then lead them up the mountain as opposed to stand on the mountain waving the flag.
Yes.
And it's so easy for us to get into this, no, I know the solution, here it is, and think that it's clear, but not having taken it back down to the level that the stakeholders need to understand and where they are at.
Preaching to the choir. Absolutely. One of the things that I use and is so impactful is at the beginning of a project, somebody's got a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sponsor for this dream. It doesn't really matter where they sit in the organization.
Yep.
But what needs to happen in the beginning is that person needs to gain that clarity around, why do I want this really? What, at the end of the day, is the so what of us getting this done? Because if I've got my what is this project. What's the so what of it? What do we gain by doing this? Then you get to the now what. My very simple 3-part formula. What, so what, now what. So the now what means you need to get clarity from day one, even pre-day one. You need to get clarity on what's it really going to take for us to move from current business as usual to the new business as usual. What does that journey look like? Sometimes I would be pulled into projects where that clear end was not there. And anybody knows, I mean, if you have a GPS system in your car and you have a direction you want to go, you expect to arrive there. If you don't put in where there is, it's just by chance, right? I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. And another part that is even more disturbing is they're not sure where they're starting from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to plot a course. And one of the things, I'll quote some industry statistics that are disturbingly old and consistent. So that for the past over 40 years, research has shown us that projects that depend on people changing what they do or how they do it, over 70% of those projects fail. And the cost of those losses, just in terms of money invested and employee time and probably other resources that are brought in, is approaching trillions.
Billions, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Trillions
annually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Over 70% of those projects fail. And there has been one consistent reason since the research started in 1990. And that is leadership accountability for the organization's readiness to arrive at the new. And what that means is, in the beginning, we need to understand very clearly what it is where we're trying to get and why, and who's going to be impacted and how, and what is it that we as a leadership cohort need to do to help our individual teams make that journey. And oh, by the way, don't forget, during that journey, they are going to have 1 foot in the old and 1 foot in the new, because it isn't very often where you just flip that switch and everything, we just let go of the old. No, it doesn't happen that way. And when you're changing how people do what they do, there is only one voice that matters to them. and that is their individual direct report leader. And that's because that person has the power of reward and recognition. They are the ones that judge performance. They are the ones that need to convey. Not only do I know what it's going to take for us to go from here to there, I know what's going to have to change. And I am responsible for helping you be as ready to be comfortable, competent, and in control when you get there as you are right now. Until the leader is able to do that, until an entire leadership cohort is able to be unified in their messaging, being able to then take it down to their individual group and personalize it. Without that in place, it is a crapshoot that success is going to happen. So I go in and I work with those individuals. We get the sponsor on board. They sponsor what ends up being a total investment across a leadership team, individuals, 4 hours out of each individual's life during a 2-week period for interviews and then for a data feedback and processing kind of a session where I go and I gather the voice of the organization. I gather the individual stakeholders' input. What do they understand? What are they concerned about? What are they not going to say in public? All of these things that will be anonymously gathered together and then pulled into a group meeting or say, this is what you all have to say about what's going on. These are the questions. These are the fears. These are the concerns. These are the misunderstandings. And get that leadership team clear. Imagine if on a project, every single one of the affected organizations was very clear from their leader, not from the grapevine. And oh, by the way, the grapevine will be full. You have a choice. You can feed it with the truth and a consistent, common message, or it will be filled with all of the suppositions that come up in a vacuum on the grapevine, right? Have you seen that? Have you seen that happen
The
rampant?
grapevine is really fascinating. And here's one of the things that for me, I have recognized is that you can't just say it once.
No.
And so often leaders think because I've said it once, therefore people understand it, therefore people are on path. But just like in marketing, right? Like you and I are of the age where we heard jingles frequently, right? And so the reason I remember the McDonald's jingle is because I heard it over and over and over and over again. They didn't change that jingle. The jingle probably is still the same now, 30
Probably.
years later. And the same needs to be true in a project. You come from the automotive industry. I come from the oil and gas industry. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. But when you are leading a project or you're leading change in the organization, you can't just say it once and hope that they hear it, because that is, to me, part of what leads to the gossip wheel, the whole kind of like, what is it? Because it's almost like the telephone game, right? Where one person says something to some person and they say it to some person. And when you have it clear and you can repeat it consistently and everybody can say the same thing, right? Like in your example of the Apollo mission, right? We're going to get 3 lives back to Earth, right? Like nobody needed to, there was nothing else. What is it? What is the simplest way of saying it? So one of the things I'm curious to know is, what do you think is one of the causes of downfall that stops people from being clear, from sharing that clear message through the organization?
You asked for one. I think.
You can give me multiple. I'm okay with that.
Well, so I want to focus in on what gets called resistance. So resistance, there are actually 3 components to resistance. And those 3 are comfort, competence, and control. So any one of us could at this moment sit and think about us in our doing role, whatever might be the job that we're doing, and we know what we know. We're comfortable in being able to execute whatever it is that we've been told to do. We're competent. We can do rinse, repeat, and we also, through those comfort, competence, and control elements, we know how to make the system work. We know how to make the project work. We know how to get things done when something goes wrong. We used to, when it doesn't happen according to Hoyle, or when it starts going down the not happy path, that we make these decisions based on an understanding and a comfort with what really is happening and what is the goal of the work that I do right here. When you change any of that for me, and you tell me I'm now going to have a different something to do, a different way to do it, this is not just about training. This isn't about, and again, automotive, IT. So it's not like here's the new report, or here's the new screen, or here's the whole new system, and this is how you push the buttons. It's like teaching a parrot to sing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" over and over and over again. Yeah, I can push here, but am I prepared to make decisions when things don't go right? When something comes along that is questionable? I do know that right now. You reward me right now for knowing that, for being comfortable, competent, and in control. How are you going to make sure that I'm in that same space when I go there? So when people start pushing back, that resistance, and at leader level on through the entire team, when people start pushing back, it isn't actually resistance. It's a request. Help me understand how you're going to help me be successful. So it's not that people are resisting the change. They're resisting losing what they have. And until you can help them understand that they're going to be kept safe, that's what's going to happen. People are going to push back. And there are so many different things. Watch people disconnect in meetings. Watch people stop caring, stop volunteering. People that are getting frazzled, they're busy doing everything because they don't know exactly what's important right now, because there's this shift. There are so many signals, to the point you raised just now about the consistency in the messaging. You can't just post a poster and, doing one declaration via email or a town hall. Gather around, everybody, we're going to do this. Just do it. But why? Here are questions. These are the questions you need to be able to answer. Why this? Why now? And what if we don't? Every leader needs to be able to answer that question for their individual group and for themselves. The sponsor needs to be able to answer that question for every one of their stakeholders and themselves. So this notion of resistance, it isn't there. People don't resist change. That is not the issue. They are resisting losing what it is they have today. And there's a simple answer for that. Help them see what they're going to need in the future, and how you, as a leader, are going to help them assure they arrive safely. I understand the journey. I understand where we're coming from. I understand where we're headed. I understand the impact it's going to have on us. I understand the difficulty we're going to encounter along the way. Now, what does that say, Nancy? It says that's a lot of extra work for the leader. It is not. Communication and developing the confidence and understanding of your team is your job. Oh, I went into a different mode.
I love how you're getting so passionate. You're like, I'm like so passionate. And I agree with you. As a manager, as a leader, your number one job is to communicate clearly have conversations with your team members, with senior leadership about the change, about what it is. And here's the reality. If your company is choosing not to do change and staying as is, you are staying stagnant and you will be left behind. So change is kind of like this mandatory requirement of business, of moving forward, and helping your team understand that happens all through conversations. And when I describe conversations, it could be the presentation, could be the town hall, it's the one-on-ones, but it's that same common thread
Yes.
in those conversations around the clarity of what it is. If you could
Absolutely.
take a look at your career, because I know you've got great stories, and what is an example of one where you saw the conversations really kind of derail, not go well? And if you could go back and offer advice to that leader, what would you tell them to do differently?
I can't help but go back to the story that changed the trajectory of my career.
Mhm.
And if you'll indulge me, I will
Yeah,
share
please.
that. So it kind of starts like this. You, get up here. And that's how I was greeted. When I had been invited to this office area, and the manager, as I opened the door, shouted that at me, going up to there, which is where he beckoned me, was actually an elevated office. This was in an area of a manufacturing facility, deep in the bowels of an automotive manufacturing facility that I think must have housed a process from some time ago. And this was like a control, there was a control room above it. That
Yep.
was his office. And so he walked me into his office, and it had this giant glass window, this window that looked down
On the
on
plant.
16 desks,
Yep.
at which sat 16 angry men glaring up at me in this fishbowl. And the manager says, "You sit here." Then he stomps out of the office and stands at the top of the 4-step stairwell. And he says, "You guys get your answers and then get this office back up and running." Now, this was September 10th, 1979. I was a 25-year-old female computer programmer in a pink suit. And I was staring down men who had been working longer than I had been alive. And they were angry about a report that had hit their desk that morning that I had written. And so when it came in, they had no idea what they were supposed to do with it. And so I was summoned. The questions they had were twofold, Nancy. One was, how am I supposed to trust this information when I had spent the last 10, 12, some of them 30 years stomping around the plant getting this engineering information? Their job was to translate engineering design data into manufacturing engineering information so that we can translate from what it looks like 2D to make it out on the floor, arrange all the manufacturing facilities to make it happen, blah, blah, blah. Okay. For 30 years, they've been doing it with a rotary dial telephone, the 3x5 card in their pocket, and promises of hot, fresh coffee and a Snickers bar to be able to get some of the translation taken care of. Well, along comes my report, and it's got 70+% of the information that they have been stomping around getting manually for years. How am I supposed to trust this information that I've had absolutely no part in gathering? Was one question, but the real question was, and this is what launched me. The real question was, who am I now? Who am I now that 70+% of what I've been doing is now represented on this green bar pin feed paper report? And it struck me. I said, wait a minute. Okay. My success was dependent on delivering perfect technology, and I was good at it. And I had written that report, and it was accurate. But my success had then been inflicted on people who were unprepared for it. And it cut them to the core. The manager had no idea. Now, again, this is 1979. So I could go on, but it became clear to me there that what I needed to do, I needed to go back and tell my manager, said, look, we need to do a much better job of helping people be ready for what it is that we're doing. This is information, or at that point it was data processing, computer programming and data processing. We need to help them be ready. And I got the hand. And he said, Carla, we do data, we don't do people. So on the outside, I stood down. On the inside, I rose up. And from that day forward, September 10, 1979, to this very day and beyond, my passion and my focus has been on helping ready people, starting with the leaders, helping people be ready for the change that was coming and what it was going to mean to them. Now, back to the fishbowl. The report that they got wasn't even intended for them. It actually had been written for the group that was just ahead of them in the process flow. And that group had gotten it and saw, oh, goodness, look, this is information those guys in the fishbowl, they didn't really call them the guys in the fishbowl, but the guys in the fishbowl ask us for. We should just give this over to them. A 30-second conversation between two leaders who were connected in the process, where one leader was going to experience a change, he was getting this report, to talk to the other leader who knew nothing about it, to say, hey, I'm going to be getting this new report. We've looked at it. We think you might be interested in some of the data. Fishbowl manager says, oh, great. Thanks for letting me know. We'll take a look. 30 seconds of a conversation. Now, this is before the whole notion of actually having consideration for users of the data processing. Never before had there been the opportunity to share so much information with so many people so quickly and without any preparation. What I did is I just drove a dagger into the heart of their image of themselves. So the question you asked is, what would I do? Is what I have been doing for the past bazillion years. And that is sitting leaders down up front and saying, we need to take a look at who's going to be impacted. I mean, you know this. All of your engineers know this, that process, that engineering, it's about connections. It's about the intersection. If you look at that whole thing, I don't care what you're doing, like a big jigsaw puzzle, pieces tightly connected, and you start messing with one of them, somewhere in the middle, and then that ripple effect of a change in the middle of that puzzle and the connections it makes with the surrounding pieces gets jangled. And if you don't do anything to help manage that ripple effect, all you do is weaken the structure. And what that leads to ultimately can be total fall apart of the process. So that's what I would be telling people. You need to get together right up front and make sure that everybody who has a stake in this, everybody who's going to feel it, you're familiar with the SIPOC model, right? You could look at anything that you're doing and you start with who the supplier of what input into what process generates what output to what customer.
Yep.
So that's what I do.
I find organizations don't think about their internal customers often.
Mm-mm.
And when you're describing it, for me, one of the things that the way I learned this process, and you learn bits and pieces as you go, but it really struck home for me in 2008 when I was handed the position of turnaround manager, and usually considered one of the worst jobs in the plant. And I had a team come in and evaluate us for readiness. Now, normally turnarounds are planned a year in it, like the planning is done a year in advance. I started this position, I think 5 months in advance of this turnaround, and we hadn't even started planning it. And so essentially I was like pulling people in because there was something in my gut that told me I need to find the right people. I just need to listen to them as to what they were saying, and we would have a plan, right? We have a new refinery manager come in. He comes from a different organization completely. And he says, Nancy, we use this company to evaluate whether your turnaround is going to be successful. One of the things I loved about how they did this was they were like, you have all the procedures and all of the documents and rules that people are supposed to follow. And then you have alignment to each of those procedures. And so out of a score of 5, I think I had a 2.3. The plant manager is like, if we don't get close to a 3.8, like this turnaround is a bust. And so I had like days to figure this out. And I said to this company, I'm like, if I can do anything, what is it? And they're like, alignment is more important than all of your documentation. He says, if you can get people aligned around how to do things, the documentation is just there for support. And I was like, okay, how do I make this happen? Right? I've got 1,000 people. I've got different contractors. I've got operations. I've got inspectors. I've got like all of these different people. And I'm like, what is it that I can do? And so I actually was like, what are the 5 things they need to know? Not like the zillion procedures and all the things. What are the 5 things they need to know? And I built a 1-day training around it that we played with Connects, like those old-fashioned Connects cars. And we were able to execute that event $5 million under budget and on time because alignment and because communication. And every day as I walked out there, I would say, they'd be like, Nancy, what's the plan? And I'm like, this is the plan. Like consistent day in, day out. And it was the first time that I really learned the benefit, the power of clarity that allowed everybody on the team. And it didn't matter if I was talking to the guy shoveling the dirt, the crane operator, the operations person who ran the plant, to the head of the refinery, right? Like this is the plan. Every day was that same mission. And clarity to me leads to alignment. And when you have alignment, life is so much easier. It's easier to manage. It's easier to do. Like you don't have people who are confused and frustrated. It's just easier.
It's absolutely, because when you have that clarity, when clarity is present, energy gets organized, decisions are aligned, and momentum becomes inevitable. So being able to have all of that focused, being able to have all of that. And so leadership itself is really not about authority. It really is about the ability to create the clarity that others can move toward. Get everybody aligned like that, you've got unstoppable momentum.
Yes, very, very true. Carla, it has been so lovely to dive into this conversation, to get into it. For those of you who are watching, I'm just going to let you know a little bit about Carla. So Carla J. Lewis is the momentum architect. She helps professionals gain clarity and engineer unstoppable momentum, no matter the environment or conditions. She draws on decades of transformational experience in Fortune 100 companies and entrepreneurial ventures, and she equips individuals and teams to move forward from effort to impact with confidence, clarity, and control. And Carla, how do people find you if they want to reach out and learn more about what it is you do, help them gain more clarity, engineer better conversations in their workplace? How can they best find you?
Well, I would welcome very much my company, CJL Innovations. I have a website, carlajlewis.com. I actually want to offer a little something if somebody's interested. And talking about it, there's a couple of things, but I think what I'd like to offer is going to be this diagnostic that I use. It's a 12 question quickie kind of a thing that takes a look at 4 components of leadership. And I want to remind everyone, you're a leader, titled or not. You are a leader when you identify with having influence and an interest in being able to have that positive impact on something or someone. So this diagnostic will take a look at 4 quadrants of leadership, and it will provide you immediate feedback on what might be your strongest suit and where you might need a little shoring up. It's called the Anchor Strength Diagnostic. It's a part of my Anchored Leadership program. And I'm not sure when this will air, so I would like to give like a 2-week period from that air date so that anyone who's interested, not just in getting that diagnostic, but having a call with me for the 2 weeks after airing, I'll be able to take the first 10 who book a call. And we will go through the details of that diagnostic and talk about what might be some things to really nail to be able to elevate the game they're already playing.
That's a wonderful gift. And for anybody who is watching this, this will be in the show notes below. So just click down and you will see it in the description. You'll also see all the links on how to follow Carla on different social media platforms so that you can get to know her better. I want to thank you all for also participating and watching to the end of Engineering Better Conversations. The intention of this podcast, of this YouTube channel, is to really help take conversations deeper, really help you understand what it takes to lead, to have impact, to build trust in your organization, in your team, so that you can excel in your career and excel the people around you. My name is Nancy Michelli, and my guest today, Carla Lewis. I am so grateful for your time today, and I want to thank you for participating, for sharing your wisdom with everybody here on this channel.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Best wishes to all.